Hi, Apple has just made one of the most important decisions in its history, and it could completely change how your iPhone, your Mac, and every Apple device works in the next decade. Apple is entering a new era, from its well known CEO face of Tim Cook to the John Ternus now. A shift not just in leadership, but in how power inside Apple is being redefined. A new CEO and a completely different direction. And this isn't just about who runs Apple. It's about how power moves inside one of the most influential companies in the world. Because when companies like Apple change direction, it doesn't just affect products, it shifts power across the entire tech industry.
Welcome to Global Power Game.
For nearly 15 years, one man quietly ruled the most powerful company in the world, Tim Cook, the man who took over from a legend Steve Jobs. When Steve Jobs stepped down back in 2011, Apple was a product company, bold, creative, unpredictable. And then came Tim Cook, not a product showman, not a visionary founder, but something far more strategic. An operator who understood the importance of scale, efficiency, and control. And over the next decade, Tim Cook did not just grow Apple in the terms of innovation, but he centralized his power into operations, scale, and control, making Apple one of the most powerful financial machines in the history. Under Tim Cook, Apple streamlined its manufacturing by reducing inventory to near real-time levels and built some of the strongest supplier relationship on the planet, which means Apple could now launch and deliver millions of devices globally, almost at the same time with near perfect precision, something very few companies have ever been able to do. And the result, Apple became unstoppable at scaling and nearly impossible to compete with. Under the leadership of Tim Cook, Apple consolidated its power over its global supply chain and logistics, making its ecosystem more efficient and influential than ever. Tim Cook did not just scale Apple's products, he basically changed Apple's business model itself, expanding it beyond hardware into services. iCloud, Apple Music, the App Store, Apple TV Plus, and so on, turning Apple into a business that makes money, not just when it launches products, but every single month with recurring services revenue, higher margins, and long term stability. At the same time, Apple expanded its global presence. More retail stores, deeper reach into markets like China and India, strengthening not just sales, but its identity. Apple wasn't just a tech brand anymore, it became a lifestyle. Tim Cook did not only reinvent Apple, but he also perfected and scaled it into a global money making machine. In 2011, Apple was making around $26 billion a year in profit. Today, that number is over $100 billion. Revenue went from just over $100 billion to more than $400 billion. And Apple became from worth $350 company back in 2011 to a $4 trillion giant today in 2026, making Apple one of the most profitable companies in human history. And now, that structure of power inside Apple is beginning to shift because now, for the first time in over a decade, that system is about to be led by someone new, which makes this transition even more important. Apple's new CEO, John Ternus, he is not just another executive stepping into the CEO role. In fact, he is the hardware mind behind many of Apple's most important hardware products, from the iPhone in your hand to the Mac powering creative industries to the precision engineering behind iPad, Apple Watches, and even Vision Pro. Ternus has been at the center of all these products, and now, for the first time in years, the person leading Apple is not an operator, he is a builder himself, which means the visionary power inside Apple is now moving back to the innovation and not just execution. Under his leadership, Apple won't just keep refining products, it will start reimagining them. Not just thinner and faster iPhones, but entirely new form factors. Foldable devices, a possible ultra tier iPhone, and hardware that moves beyond the flat glass slab that we have known for years. And this shift isn't just in hardware, it's happening inside the experience itself. For years, Siri has been Apple's most familiar feature and also the most underwhelming one. That is now changing because Apple is rebuilding Siri to be more personal, more contextual, and making it more aware of what is on your screen. Because in the next phase of technology, control over intelligence is control over power. But the real story isn't about Siri, it's about what Apple is building around it. Because under this new leadership, Apple is preparing for an entirely new wave of products. Foldable iPhones that are already in development, next generation Vision Pro devices, lighter, more practical, and built for everyday usage. AI powered wearables, including future Apple glasses, Macs, and iPads that don't just perform but understand context in real time. And that changes everything. Because this isn't just about growing Apple, it's about strengthening Apple's position in the global technology power race. It's about pushing it back into a phase it hasn't fully embraced in years. A phase of bold innovation, taking bigger risks, exploring newer categories, rebuilding core products, and quietly preparing for a future beyond the iPhone. So, this isn't just a leadership change, rather, it's a shift in Apple's visionary philosophy. From the efficiency to the innovation, from the execution to the creation. Because when a company like Apple shifts its direction, it doesn't just change what people buy, it changes who leads the future of technology. And if Apple gets this right, the next decade won't be just bigger for them, it will be completely different. Because the next version of Apple may not be built around the iPhones only, it will be built around what comes after it. And that is where Apple's next era of visionary power begins.